Hello friends, and welcome to a new What I Eat in a Week video. I know so many of you really love these types of videos. I'm currently at my parents' house visiting them for a week and editing this video for you guys. So since the theme of this video is slow living, I have more time-consuming recipes for you today in this video. Since slow living is about taking that time, really spending that time with yourself, spending that time cooking. Cooking is also a form of self-love, really only giving your body the best, and also taking time not to buy things readily made, but to actually make it yourself and learn about the process. I feel like that makes me appreciate the food so much more and appreciate the people who actually make the food. But I also want to be really clear that if you don't have a bunch of time to make everything from scratch, you can still do slow living cooking or slow cooking. You can take the slow living approach to any recipe. Just make it a point to be very present with the process, with the feeling, with the smells, with the taste, with everything. Just be very, very present and savor each moment. Don't try to rush. I know that a lot of times eating and cooking is something that is rushed because we just have set our priorities on other things. So maybe try this out, maybe on a weekend, maybe just on one single meal to really romanticize the process of cooking. So I want to share with you some more, I guess, fancy, more slow recipes that I made that were so much fun. And it really did also teach me to slow down and be with the process during cooking. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Here I'm combining all my sourdough ingredients: flour, water, starter, and salt. Extracting a small sample to better track the fermentation before letting the dough bulk ferment for a few hours. I love how you can see all the yeast working, forming all these little bubbles in the dough. It's so cute. While fermenting, I'm stretching the dough from time to time to build some gluten strength that would give the sourdough a nice texture. So the big question always is, has this doubled in size? And I would say it has. We don't want it to over ferment because then all the gluten structure will have broken down and then it wouldn't rise as nicely. So now it's time to shape this. So this is my makeshift banneton. It's basically just a glass bowl with a cloth on top, and I have to put a generous amount of flour on this so it doesn't stick. I like to prepare this before I go ahead and shape my dough. This is my favorite part, shaping the dough before its final resting phase and then baking it. Here I'm stitching the edges together for a tighter shape and making sure not to waste any of the leftover flours. So I'm currently preheating the oven, and the dough that has finished proofing is in the freezer just to firm up a little bit before scoring and baking. I do have a feeling that I might have over fermented my dough, and I think I also over fermented it last time since it came out of that glass container so difficultly and it kind of ripped in places. But I'm still a beginner to baking bread, so I'm learning with every loaf that I bake. But I mean, this whole purpose isn't to bake a perfect sourdough and have it look amazing. The purpose is to slow down and be a part of every process of cooking, really enjoying and being conscious of what efforts goes into cooking. I feel like I'm a little bit all over the place today, mentally, emotionally. I think it's also about to be that time of the month, so I wasn't really paying 100% attention to my dough, which is why I think it over fermented a little bit. But we'll see how it turns out. I think it'll still be really delicious. Adding the tray on top to shield it from too much heat and to trap the steam before placing it on the pizza stone to bake. Now that the bread is in the oven, this is always the most nerve-wracking part, whether this is going to turn out good or not, whether it's going to be flat or open up really nicely. So yeah, this is going to be a surprise, and I'm always so nervous. At the halfway mark, I'm taking out the tray and the water that was in there for the steam. So the bread turned out a little bit wonky, but overall it's not too bad. It's also not as flat as I thought it would be. So I don't know, apparently I did something right. But right now, not straight out of the oven, but on the same day is when the bread tastes best. So to go along with the bread, I've decided to make a ratatouille. So with a bunch of vegetables. I also already have dried white beans cooking in my rice cooker. Amazing soup function, really easy to just throw in the beans and cook them until they're done. And I want to be really intentional with being very present when cutting all the vegetables, because it's pretty simple. You basically just have to dice everything up and then cook it really slowly and let the flavors melt and stew, which is perfect because I have a ballet class in an hour. So I'm going to prepare everything, let that simmer, and luckily Johannes, my boyfriend's at home, so he can kind of watch over it so it doesn't burn, so I can be out having my ballet class, and then when I'm back, everything will be ready to have for dinner. Even though I'm a little bit tight on time, I do want to try to be super present when cutting the vegetables, really meditating on every single cut, and yeah, just to be very intentional, present in the moment, and to really savor cooking, because cooking can be such a beautiful art form. Even though it's still spring, cutting this bell pepper and then the sun kind of shining in, I'm kind of having summer evenings deja vu. Especially this green pepper smells like a freshly mown grass, and I've never noticed that about green peppers. I don't know if it's only this one, but I'm kind of seeing myself on a field and the sun setting and it just smelling like freshly mown grass, and just such a nice summer feeling.
Just goes to show all the things that you notice when you're really trying to be present and to really take in every single moment. This smell makes me so happy.
Then I'm adding some red wine, some diced tomatoes, salt, white beans, and letting everything simmer. While the potatoes were boiling, I started on the sauce, diced everything I needed, and fried it until fragrant. Adding the tomatoes, beans, and spinach. Letting the sauce simmer before going back to the potatoes. Seasoning the mashed potatoes with salt, pepper, nutmeg, and flour to combine. And once the dough has come together, I'm going ahead to shape the gnocchis. When I've divided the dough into little pieces, I'm pressing it onto the back of a fork to form that ribbing for the sauce to cling onto the gnocchi. Boil the gnocchi in small batches and while stirring, and only until they float to the top. That means they're done. I really love these gnocchis. They were so light and airy. When you've made your own wraps, you will realize how bad store-bought wraps taste in comparison. Making them myself, I also have the option to make them 50% whole grain. Mixing together flour, salt, baking powder, olive oil, and water. Once the dough has rested for about 20 minutes, dividing into small parts and rolling the dough out to paper thin. Let it cook in a pan on medium heat, turning over halfway. Make sure to only cook it a minute or two on both sides to prevent it from hardening up and going crispy. Store the cooked wraps under a kitchen towel to keep warm and soft. For the filling, I'm preparing some fried zucchini, and a smoky bean and pepper dish with onion, garlic, green pepper, adding tomato paste, cumin, paprika, and black beans. And for the raw vegetables, I'm dicing up tomatoes and carrot.
So Rihanna and I once had this amazing vegan ramen at this Japanese ramen restaurant, and the specific one we had was tan ramen, or noodle soup, which is kind of like the Japanese version of the Sichuan dandan mian, or noodles. And yeah, it was so delicious. I went home and googled how to make it. It turns out it's pretty simple, and at the restaurant the toppings of the ramen were pretty lame, at least the vegan toppings. So it was basically raw tomatoes and a quarter of a boiled bok choy. So I think we can make the toppings so much better.
Soaking some jelly ear mushrooms in soy bits, frying fragrant all the toppings. With the soy bits, I'm making a spicy umami topping with garlic, ginger, and domajiang, which is a fermented soybean paste. Next, I'm making a sesame paste for the broth. For the actual broth, I added water to the pot I fried all the toppings in, added some vegetable broth, let it cool down before whisking in the soy milk. It's important the soy milk doesn't heat up too quickly or else it will curdle. Adding the sesame paste to the bottom of the bowl before adding the broth on top. Meanwhile, I cook the ramen noodles with the bok choy. and then plated everything up. Thank you so much for watching this video, cooking with me. Hopefully it got you really hungry for cooking, hungry for food, hungry to spend that time with yourself and to really approach things in a slow way. I really appreciate your time here. Leave me a like and a comment if you want to support my channel and want more videos from me. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!